Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today for this edition of the Diversity and Inclusion Chat Series. Rangam and Sourceable have started these weekly talks and events on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter to highlight the need for greater representation of people with autism, neurodiversities, and other disabilities in the workplace. We wish you would all join and encourage others to join these events and give voice to a segment of our society that is underrepresented in the workforce. Today, we are going to be talking about mental health and employment. I am Chandramauli Dhara, Director of Social and Digital Marketing and a daily learner of diversity and inclusion space. My guest today is an experienced social worker with a history of working in the mental healthcare industry. She's a skilled researcher and a social services professional with a master's in social work focused in health, mental health, and disability from Columbia University. I'm excited to have Nicole Kapadia, Senior Counselor and Program Manager at the Adult Support Kendra at Yash Charitable Trust, as our guest today. Good afternoon, Nicole, and thank you for joining us for this chat.
Good afternoon. I'm so happy to be here, and thank you for having me.
I feel there is definitely a lot more that I've missed in the introduction. So I really want you to, take it forward and introduce yourself to us a little bit.
Sure. Well, I think you did a pretty good job. As you mentioned, I am a mental health counselor and a licensed social worker. I've always been drawn to the helping profession. Even through school, math and science didn't really lure me in the same way as a psychology class did. which I took in high school, and that very much launched my interest and my career. So I received a bachelor's in psychology from Skidmore College and a master's in social work from Columbia, as you mentioned, and have had a lot of diverse experience in the field. I've worked with individuals I worked both in the US and in India. Most of my schooling was done there. So in the US, my experience was mostly related to severe mental health issues and individuals with histories of trauma, including homelessness. Um, I made a personal life change in about 2017 and decided to shift to India to be closer to my family, and have gotten a multitude of experience as well while being in India, including working in the field of domestic violence and protection of women and kids against violence, as well as with Yash Charitable Trust in the field of disability, specifically intellectual and developmental disabilities.
That's nice. That's very nice. So tell us a little bit about Ask and what Ask does. Ask being Adult Support Center, and a little bit background on Yash Charitable Trust, so our audience can know. Uh, so
Yeah, absolutely. So, Ask and Yash Charitable Trust have an interesting history. Ask Adult Support Kendra, as you mentioned, started in about 2014, but we joined with Yash Charitable Trust in 2018. We received funding which allowed us to expand Ask. And Ask is a leg of Yash Charitable Trust that really works in two specialized areas. And those are in the areas of mental health for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, as well as employment, supportive employment placing. So those are really the roles of Ask, and I have been with Ask for about 6 months now, and we do a lot of different type of work. The first and foremost being counseling. We provide mental health counseling to individuals with neurodiversities as well as their family members. We also do we run a variety of group modules and do group work. We hold awareness sessions where we speak to professionals, to family members, to individuals with disabilities about various topics that impact adults with neurodivergence. And lastly, like I said, employment support. That's a new area that we're working in and looking to place individuals with disabilities in various employment settings.
great, that's nice. So let me ask you this: what role does mental health play in the overall well-being of an individual, and what are the activities that you usually go through at Ask for? Yeah.
Sure. So mental health, it's just as important as physical health, right? In the same way as if you have a cold, you go to the doctor. If you are dealing with stress or you're feeling any type of depression or irritation or lowness, it's important that you reach out to a professional and address it in the same way that you would any physical ailments. Ask really strives to create a safe, non-judgmental space where individuals as well as family members can come to us and talk about those issues that might not have a lot of services catered towards them. One thing we recognized in India is there's a lot of organizations and programs geared towards children with developmental and intellectual disabilities, and not so much focused on adults. And intellectual and developmental disabilities are lifelong impairments, right? They're something that people live with for their whole life. So therefore, there really needs to be different focus and attention at various levels. So Ask works primarily with adults, and we talk about issues like sexuality, leaving home, independent life skills for a group of individuals that struggle with some of those life skills. Mental health, like I said, we want to create that safe, non-judgmental space, a place where people feel validated and feel heard. And this is not only for individuals struggling with ID and DD, it's also for family members and caregivers, right? Caregiver support and is huge, right? It's an integral part of somebody living with a disability, and caregiver burnout is also a huge risk. So one of the things that we do is provide support also to family members and discuss with them whatever issues they're going through. All of our goals and our focuses at Ask, the work that we do, everything is client centered. It's goal oriented, and we provide empathic support. That's kind of our role. And basically, our mission is to provide individuals with both intellectual and developmental disabilities opportunities to learn required life skills, earn a livelihood, develop social relationships, and meaningfully participate in their communities. And that's an important piece, meaningfully participate, right? Because that varies from person to person. Everybody has different goals. Everybody has different things they want to achieve in their life. And just because we have one view of success doesn't mean that's the same view of success for everybody. So it's really important that we take a client-centered approach, which means each individual is valid in their thinking and their goals and their wants.
So, uh, this pandemic must have been really a busy time for you at Ask, because the reports and the news and the data that's coming out is it's taken a heavy toll on the mental well-being of a lot of people, not only people with disabilities, but even people without any disabilities are also facing a lot of mental stress because of staying at home and all those things. So in that case, how has Ask been able to change tracks and conducted its activities, and how has Ask been able to manage these things?
Yeah. Well, both Ask and Yash Charitable Trust, had to adapt, just as all organizations and companies had to adapt through these, times that we were living in and are still living in. And we moved everything online. We created platforms not only for our counseling, which is individual, family, and group work, but we also run enrichment sessions at our skill development center. And obviously, since individuals couldn't physically come to the skill development centers, we had Zoom classes running, which required, a lot of coordination and tech support from people who are much, much more tech savvy than I am. But we transitioned everything to an online format. And it was tough. Initially, it was tough. A lot of our individuals, and a lot of the work that we do, being in person and face to face is such a key part of it. There's body language, there's tone, there's nuances that sometimes are lost through an online platform. But I think all of our staff, all of our team members, and all of our clients, everyone we work with, we're really persistent in keeping with it. We didn't lose a lot of clients through this process. In fact, I'd say it was the opposite. We gained a lot of clients. And I think that speaks to two things. One, like you mentioned, the fact that a lot of individuals are struggling with mental health through this time. And second, our services are effective. They're able to bring that feeling of connectivity and support that's needed in a time where isolation is really heightened. One of the cooler things we started during this time, socialization and connectivity is an area that is hard for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And all of our work is constantly geared towards, okay, how can we increase levels of connection? How can we make people feel more sociable? How can we teach those skills? And doing that online is tough. So one of the things we did was we created these online hangout spaces where whoever was interested, we created a group of people where they would meet once to twice a week. And there weren't as many focused activities in those groups. It was just an opportunity for people to come together, to connect, to see some familiar faces, and to keep moving in those skills and developing in those skills of socialization, which was hard during COVID because nobody was leaving the house. There was very little socializing happening. So those adult hangout spaces offered all of our team members and clients an opportunity to keep connected with one another. And they're popular, I have to say. They're still running, and we're actually expanding on those groups, so they're going well.
Yeah, technology has been a godsend boon for many people, and sometimes, I mean, in my previous chats also, I said that if this thing had happened like 10 years ago, it would have been a totally, I would not say different, but I would like to say a far more stressful thing to cope with. with lack of technology and connectivity, but now it's a little bit manageable. Having
Absolutely.
said, yeah, you said that Ask is right now venturing into the workplace and employment segment. So I'd like to ask you, how do you view this autism and disability employment landscape right now, as it is right now in India? I know you don't have much interactions, but in the little bit that you have seen, I'd like to understand a little bit. How do you see that happen?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would say I view it optimistically. We've seen a shift in thinking on the part of employers in terms of hiring individuals with disability, hiring individuals with neurodivergence, right? There's a shift in the understanding and the awareness of not only the skill level of these individuals, but how much value that they bring to a staff and that can bring to a team. And we've seen a lot of larger companies like EY, Accenture, Wipro, Costa Coffee making an active, concerted effort to hire individuals with disability. And that's been really gratifying to see. You know, One of the things we always push companies to think about is not only think about those higher, more specialized positions, but also the lower housekeeping, catering type things. A lot of our team members, we have a great space and a great model in the food and beverage space. One of the things that Yash Charitable Trust, one of our successes, I would say, is our Pun Cafe, which is a cafe in Juhu that we run that's run entirely by individuals with developmental and intellectual disabilities. And it's been a huge success. And not only is it incredibly empowering to the people that work there, but it's a functioning business, it's a functioning cafe. And I think in a lot of ways, we're seeing companies start to view this population that before, was maybe viewed as having little to no skills or at least not employable skills. And there's been a shift in thinking, and that's been really gratifying to see. And, talking to companies about that, talking to employers, to organizations, even to smaller shops, um, about the skills and the attributes of individuals with both intellectual and developmental disabilities is part of what I do. And, I see firsthand the unique talents and skills and contributions that all of our team members have. And it's really about finding the right setting for them and finding that right role. And I think there's a lot that's going to come, I think, in the next 5 years in terms of employment with disability in India.
As somebody who is new to this space, at least in India, I have some experience with the US side,
Yeah.
but I also feel that there is being I wouldn't say a tectonic shift, but there has been a shift has been starting that says we are moving from sympathy to empathy, where
Yes.
we don't feel sorry for it, but empathetic thought, like businesses are businesses. They are there to make money and all, but having said that, having empathy and bringing the culture of empathy into a workplace really helps. Is what we personally feel at Rangam, and I feel that that makes it really a big amount of difference. So,
Absolutely.
what since you are into mental health and counseling and stuff, let me ask you this question: what roles do caregivers play when it comes to counseling or providing help and assistance to individuals with disabilities? What is their role?
Yeah. Well, caregivers, family members, caregivers are a hugely important part of the process, right? India, being a collectivist community, you know, you are your family, you are your community, you are joined in part with your family and community. And that separation doesn't really exist. And, being brought up in the US in a very individualistic community, that was a shift for me, really involving parents and family members, not only in counseling, but even through the employment process is a big part of the work that we do. There's always a lot of input, concerns, questions, and support that's coming from not only the immediate family, but the extended family. Um, in terms of counseling, we do a lot of family session counseling, oftentimes to address targeted, specific behaviors that might be happening in the household. So suggesting possible solutions to family members and individuals together, bringing people together and allowing for a space of positive communication is a big part of the work that we do as well. And we include families in our employment interviews as well. We recognize that the individuals that we work with look to their parents and look to their caregivers for, permission, support. Do you think this is a good idea? Do you think I could do this? And their input is really valuable. So, while we'll have parents sitting in on an employment interview, my questions might be directed, directly to that individual because they are an adult and we want to treat them as such. But their parents' input absolutely makes a huge difference. Even when opportunities arise, we see adults looking to their parents and checking in, okay, is this the right job for me? So there's a lot of explaining that we do to parents. We do separate phone calls with parents, all while having consent, obviously, of our adults, allowing us to speak to their family members. But it plays a huge role.
Since we are talking about counseling and parents and stuff, there are many people know, and almost all of our audience will know that disabilities are visible and invisible. Is there a difference in how you handle these? Is there a difference in the amount of counseling that you need to provide for individuals with visible and invisible disabilities? And how does that vary for you?
I don't know that there's a difference in counseling. Everyone, regardless of their disability, regardless of their diagnosis, regardless of any issue, we treat with the same inherent respect and dignity, right? Those are the core values of our counseling. That being said, some of the issues that they face might be different. I go to school and people are talking to me and I have trouble talking back, and that's when they start to learn that I have a disability, right? So what you mentioned, invisible disabilities, creating awareness about those disabilities, talking about them, sensitizing individuals is a big part of the work that we do, both in social settings and family settings, as well as employment settings. A lot of it is psychoeducation, right? Understanding what is autism, what is Asperger's disorder, what are the symptoms and traits that come along with it, where are their areas of improvement, what do they struggle with, and also what are their successes, what are people really good at. A lot of education around that. I think that because people might not see the disability first thing, there's an expectation that they should be able to do everything that we're able to do, right? And that would be true in a lot of situations, but there also might need to be some accommodations put in or some understanding put in. And that's where Ask comes in. We try and sensitize people to those areas.
When we are talking about sensitizing, and when individuals with neurodisabilities or neurodiversities and autism, they go to work, it has been found that this actual question comes from a chat that I heard yesterday with an individual who is on the spectrum, and she was saying that it is expected for the people or individuals with neurodivergence or autism to be trained. You are expected to train them on how to work, but it is not the other way around. You don't train the people at the workforce on how to
Right.
gel with them. Let me use a very common layman term, gel with them. But
Sure.
there are a lot more pieces to the puzzle than just gelling with people, but how to work with them.
Yeah.
What do you really think there is a role that training can play or corporate training can play that actually provides training to managers and team members that says if you have somebody with neurodiversities or an autism or a disability, these are the things you do, these are the things you don't do. Is there a role that trainings can play?
Yes, absolutely. And, training is a key part of the process in placement, not just training our clients, not just training our team member and those soft skills and those employment skills, but also training the organization, training the company, offering that support as mental health professionals and professionals working in this field to the company to say, okay, hey, this person's going to come in and there might be some things that you notice. How are you going to address those things? You know, a lot of times I think people are fearful. People are fearful of what they don't understand. And that fear often leads to avoidance. You know, it furthers stigma. It makes a marginalized population even more marginalized. So we want to bring all that out into the open. We want to talk about it and say, okay, you know, we might have somebody who's sitting in your office and doing some type of self-talk or hand flapping or having some type of behavior that you might not have seen before in an office setting. So is that okay? How does it affect you? How does that harm you? Does it interrupt the work? If not, can we just let it continue? Like, all of these need to be open conversations. And we're more than happy to go into any organization, any company, and have these open conversations. And I think that the onus is on the employer in this. You know, they have a responsibility to create a safe and healthy workspace for all of their employees, excuse me, all of their employees. And that includes individuals with a more neurodiverse background. So going in, speaking to companies is definitely on our agenda of things that we want to accomplish as part of our employment program within Ask.
There are differing views. Because our company's group motto stays as empathy drives innovation. And inside our organization also, there are little different views sometimes where some people think empathy can be taught, some people think it is ingrained, and empathy is something that you're born with. So, here, let me ask you a question that plays right into it. What role do you think empathy really plays when you're talking about disability inclusion in the workplace, in the society, or whichever way you talk about?
Yeah. I mean, empathy plays a role. Let me rephrase. Empathy should play a role in everything that we do, right? You know, the ability to put yourself in somebody else's shoes, imagine that experience, imagine the highs and the lows that come on, that could be a part of that experience, is an extremely important skill and quality, right? That a lot of people have. Not everybody, but a lot of people have it. And like you said, the shift that we're seeing in employment spaces from this sympathy to empathy, um, you know, that shift, we do see it happening, you know. But I also think awareness and education go hand in hand with empathy. We're able to be more empathic when we understand things, when we're more knowledgeable, when we're more informed. I think knowledge is power in that sense, and that power can definitely translate into empathy in employment spaces, in schools, educational spaces, in community spaces. So we want to do both. We want to increase understanding, increase awareness of both intellectual and developmental disabilities, but we also want to do that through an empathic lens. And there's absolutely ways to do that.
So I see that we are getting close to, we got like a couple of minutes left before we finish this session, and I want to respect everybody's time. So before we go, I wanted to ask you a personal story that is deeply impactful and how it actually happened and how it impacted you. Do you have any you could share with us and the audience?
Yeah, you know, as a counselor, you see people achieve goals at all levels, right? And the goal could be very, very small. The goal could be very, very large. And the progress, whatever that is, I think is meaningful despite the size of the goal. An individual that I've been working with for about 6 months is somebody who has struggled through his schooling, has struggled with academia. an individual I work with is very eager to get a job. That's one of his main goals, and eager to be independent, right? And we talk a lot about how to get independent. Okay, you need money. How do you get money? You need a job. Okay, how do you get a good job where you're making money? You need education. So we have somebody who in the last month, like I said, he struggled with school, and he recently signed up again for his 12th through NIOS. And that was such a huge accomplishment from him because, his past experiences might have been so traumatic and scarring that he was not open to it. But through our counseling, through our conversations on how step by step to achieve his goal of getting a job, he recognized that education was a really key piece of that. So on his own, through this lockdown and pandemic, went and registered himself for 12 through NIOS, which was fantastic, absolutely fantastic. I think another one of our successes definitely you can be seen through YCT and Archon Cafe, right? We have a fully functioning, fully staffed cafe that's run entirely by individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And it's an absolutely fantastic place. If you're in Mumbai and things are open and safe, stop in because it's a great experience. Not to mention the great food and drink, but just a really great experience to interact with our team members there.
So what I gain from all this two instances is either you got to have conversations to change the mindset. It doesn't matter if the mindset is of the individual with disability or of an organization. You got to have continuously congealing conversations where you build on the past conversations and you keep on hammering home the point that this has to be done, or you got to actually see it firsthand of what success is and what people with disabilities can achieve to make sure that not only the message sinks in, but also to see what all can be done, what more can be done. And that is also inspiring. Those are two inspiring stories.
Definitely.
As I keep on saying, 30 minutes is not enough time to actually talk about these things. There are a lot more things we can touch, and there are a lot more issues that need to be, I wouldn't say solved, but at least talked about, because as conversations are what keep the things rolling. I really wanted to thank you for joining us, coming and being a guest on this show, giving your time. And I've had like 3 or 4 conversations with you over the past few weeks, and each one has been far more enriching, and this one also included. So thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, Nicole.
Thank you. It's an important conversation to have, an important conversation to keep having. So I thank you for creating the space for the dialogue, and happy to be here. Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Thank you, everybody, for coming, joining us, and listening in and watching this. We are here every Thursday at 3 p.m. Indian, and we'll be back again next Thursday with one more guest who will be a thought leader. Thank you, everybody, and thanks, Nicole, once again. You all have a nice afternoon.
Thank you.